7 January 2025 is the 77th anniversary of the fatal Captain Thomas F. Mantell UFO Incident. Although there is little evidence to support the claim, most skeptics have concluded that Captain Mantell was chasing a Project Skyhook balloon allegedly launched from Clinton County Air Force Base, Wilmington, Ohio, the day before. The event is still important because it motivated research and brought Ohio State University astronomer J Allen Hynek into the field of study. Unfortunately, with its Occam's razor likely balloon solution, the Mantell incident now often serves to distract away from more compelling cases, such as the many 8mm films captured by Dorothy Izatt with on-demand split-second light shows. Debunkers never opt to discuss those details here, choosing instead to focus on weaker targets. Please do not allow these proverbial goats to misdirect, discourage, or anger you.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. When Captain Thomas Mantell's P-51 fighter plane dropped out of the sky on the 7th of January, 1948, it created a UFO controversy that remains unsolved to this day. Did Mantell die at the hands of an alien astronaut, or was he, as the Air Force contends, mistakenly chasing the planet Venus or a weather balloon?
Most recently, the balloon theory, the top-secret balloon that was out at that time.
The Air Force will neither confirm nor deny the existence of a balloon near Godman Field that day. But there is compelling evidence that such a balloon did exist. In the hours before Mantell's UFO sightings and subsequent death, several bases reported seeing a UFO overhead, traveling at 250 miles per hour. One air controller described it as round and white, resembling a parachute.
The problem with an automatic certain conclusion that the parachute description confirms a Skyhook balloon is that the pilots of the 21 October 1952 RAF Little Rizzington encounter also initially thought parachutes until the flight characteristics proved otherwise.
We climbed up through some cloud and eventually broke out into clear weather at about, I think, 14,000, 15,000 feet. And it was shortly after that that I noticed in the windscreen, directly in front, 3 circular white or off-white objects.
Swinney initially fears that he is seeing fellow airmen floating down on parachutes.
This is why we've hinted in the past that humans need to learn to ask better, more detailed questions. Evidence of that coaching to appear in the next video release.
Now, for the first time in nearly a half-century, key players in the Mantell mystery are about to talk.
Along with the base commander in the tower at Godman Field that day was base intelligence officer Captain James Dusler.
The UFO was in the air for 4 hours, and it didn't move, it just stayed there. We were looking at something and didn't know what in the world we were looking at.
At the time of the sighting, Captain Mantell was leading a squadron of P-51s for the Kentucky National Guard. Over Godman Field, there was no longer anything routine about this mission.
Mantell was requested to pursue this unidentified flying object. One of the pilots in the flight, Al Clements, said to him, "Tommy, you don't have any air, you can't do this." Mantell replied back, "Al, don't worry about it, it's not a problem." They continue on up. Clements finally caught onto it himself. He described it as a large, glowing object.
He said, "My 2 wingmen are coming in. We want hot guns, and we want them now."
According to air traffic controller Quentin Blackwell, Mantell ordered the other planes back to load on live ammunition while he continued to climb toward the UFO. Only this man is still alive to describe what happened next. He is telling his story for the first time since 1948.
The day of the Mantell crash, I was 6 years old. My mother was taking clothes in off the line. She'd been watching a bright light in the sky. We heard a loud plane, and we saw this fighter plane coming in below the bright light. Got pretty close to it, and all of a sudden it went straight up at it. And then when he got all the way to it, he leveled off and flew away from it to the west.
Mantell's plane smashed into the ground, going in excess of Mach 1. Captain Dusler was among the first investigators on the scene. As a seasoned intelligence officer, Dusler had been at many crash sites before, but this one was extraordinary and deeply disturbing.
There wasn't a drop of blood anyplace. Now, I talked to one of the coroner people. It was odd because there was no blood. Odd because there was no fire. I don't ever recall seeing a crash like that or as serious as that didn't have a fire. I never saw his body because the coroner had taken him away.
No one at the funeral home saw the body. It was in a black leather bag, and then it was sealed inside a lead coffin. The body was buried on the 10th of January, 1948, 3 days after the accident. Certainly a closed coffin funeral. But again, we have a question. Was there even a body in that black leather bag? No one saw the remains.
Despite official denials, there is ample evidence that the Air Force sent a special UFO investigative team from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio to the Mantell crash site. Sightings has obtained memos indicating that Colonel H.M. McCoy, Chief of Air Force Intelligence at Wright-Pat, and his investigator, Al Loting, were attempting to gather information on the flying disc Mantell was chasing.
If we can find out their background, then we can have a little bit more information that could answer as to whether this was an extraterrestrial vehicle.
But the solution to the Mantell mystery is unlikely to come from the one source that probably knows the truth. The Air Force explanation that Mantell died from anoxia, lack of oxygen, while chasing Venus, is contradicted even in their earlier report, recently obtained by Sightings. In this memo, written just after the crash and dated a decade earlier than the official report, Venus is ruled out as the UFO Mantell died for in the sky above his Kentucky home.
Blackjack, this is Blue Jay 4. UFO is picking up speed and climbing.
As I've mentioned previously, Gene Roddenberry and Bill Shatner have immortalized Captain Mantell in the January 1967 episode of Star Trek titled Tomorrow is Yesterday.
I'm going in closer. I can see it now. Whatever this thing is, it's big.
Welcome aboard the Enterprise.
I never have believed in little green men.
Neither have I. Captain Christopher, this is my first officer, Lieutenant Commander Spock.
Captain?